Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here for NFL Week 11, and it looks like our sound is working off the first start this time, so that's always a plus. With us, as always, is Achilles Reign to get into the NFL in Week 11. Are you ready to dive deep into the Week 11 games here?
Yeah, I had a pretty good week last week, and I'm hoping to keep it going here this week. So let's make some bets.
All right, let's make some bets. Well, sadly, we have to start out with a tough one for you. The Los Angeles Rams are going to the New Orleans Saints here, and the Saints are 2.5-point favorites. Don't know really what to say here. I think last week was probably the sort of final nail in the Rams' coffin for this season. Not only did they lose to Colt McCoy, of the Arizona Cardinals, but you mix in the Cooper Kupp injury, and it appears to be a 4 to 6 week injury. And quite honestly, if it's 4 weeks, why are you bringing him back those last 2 weeks of the season? So he's probably, done for the year. And this is probably just it for them. The Saints, coming off a bad loss at Pittsburgh, they didn't play well. That was one of the ones I missed. Needless to say, they are still semi-alive in this NFC South. So I really liked the Saints minus 2.5 because you have to convince me how the hell the Rams are going to score points without Cooper Kupp here on the road in New Orleans. What do you make of this game's Rams-Saints here?
Well, I mean, first of all, that Cooper Kupp injury was probably really devastating to not just, Ram fans, but also anybody who likes to bet on prop bets here, including fantasy owners. But you nailed it on the head. I don't see why they would bother rushing him back based off what they've done. Even with him in the lineup, hasn't really been up to the caliber of what they performed like last year. So I think that he's done for the year. I don't see a scenario where they could win 80-90% of their games from the remaining games. So it's really tough. But even with Cooper Kupp in the lineup, I still think that I would have leaned towards the Saints here. The Rams just haven't been good. Yeah. And, this is coming from me. You know how much I love this team, but they just really haven't been good. They've been pretty bad on just about every single, part of the game. The defense has been kind of a bend, don't break defense, but, with all those guys you have on there, you're talking about Bobby Wagner, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, you expect a much better performance from that defense. So with all that being said, I'll give you what my plays for this game are. I am taking the Saints minus 2.5 here. Like I said, even if Cooper Kupp was in the lineup, this Rams team hasn't showed me that they have the ability to beat anybody. So I still would have taken that. But now with Cooper Kupp out of the lineup, even better. All the offensive line injuries for the Rams only intensifies my confidence in this pick here. Then I've got Alvin Kamara anytime touchdown at minus 105. I know that he hasn't been, great this year, but against a team like the Rams who tend to give up pretty big chunks on the ground, I think that this would be a good play here. I've got Olave anytime touchdown at plus 240 here. Again, this is just a result of that defense that this Ram like to play. They like to give up a lot of in-between stuff. They don't get beat big, but when they do, I would definitely put my money on Olave here. And my last one is Matthew Stafford over half an interception for the game at minus 132. He's been pretty consistent with that. Not something I want to gloat about here, but that's probably been the most consistent part of this season.
Yeah, I thought last week, I watched the game because, I put money on the Cardinals because Colt McCoy started. And honestly, I think that's the worst I've seen this Rams defense probably look, afforded the situation of what they were playing against, in quite a while. We touched on it a little bit the week before about, Morris as the defensive coordinator and, how much do we like him? This just feels honestly like I'm curious how much effort we get out of this Rams team here, with this. And quite honestly, I'm stunned they're playing Stafford in this too. Why do you want to beat him up more? I mean, I get it. He probably wants to play, but there's just nothing here. So Saints minus 2.5 for me as well. I'm going pretty big on that one. I will say, I'm going to offset it a little bit. Your boy Allen Robinson has jumped into my player props here. If he is ever going to do anything, it probably will be this week. I did see our boy Dynamite David in fantasy did pick up Ben Skowronek, though. So I guess he's factoring in a big Ben game here. But nonetheless, I have Robinson anytime touchdown plus 215. Somehow this was only 16-1. I'm a little disappointed, but Allen Robinson 2+ touchdowns, 16-1. I don't think the Rams have scored 2+ touchdowns in a game this season, and I'm not 100% sure Robinson has 16 total catches on the year. So I don't know. And then lastly, Robinson 100+ receiving yards, 7-1. So I'm taking Saints big, and I figure if the Rams do anything. The only weapon literally on the field for the Rams would have to have a big game, so maybe it would offset it.
Yeah, Ben, the poor man's Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, that should be interesting. I guess you could also maybe throw in Van Jefferson, but, other than the occasional, deep play, I've never seen him really consistently, be a 6 to 8 ball receiver type guy.
Listen, I'm not saying that this Rams offense is not going to score any points or score any touchdowns here. There's definitely a chance, but it's just the offensive line woes so far this season. I mean, is Stafford going to have enough time to to get a ball out to Jefferson? I don't know. This seems like more of a fantasy type of game. If you're picking up those guys, a lot of in between stuff, a lot of catches. But as far as going deep, the way this offense has performed, even with Cooper Kupp in the lineup, I mean, it doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the next game here. Washington Commanders at the Houston Texans. Houston Texans plus 3.5 at home. That was one of the ones I had right last week. The Texans, sadly, they could have won that game outright. I think they were sitting in the red zone about 75 different times, and each time decided to do something stupid to move themselves back and didn't quite get the win. But nonetheless, Commanders, Texans here. I really, really wanted to take the Texans plus 3.5. The one concerning thing that sort of made me pull off of it was I think the Commanders' running attack with Robinson and Gibson can probably control this game. And the way the Texans, sort of defend the run made me a little nervous that it wouldn't be quite as clean as like last week versus the Giants. So what'd you make for Commanders Texans here?
I was on the same boat as you. I actually, in my notes, I thought about taking Houston here with the points. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. A lot of it had to do with the fact that I believe it was the running back for the Commanders that's out on IR at least for the time being. But I don't have a play in this one, but I like I said, I have an inkling here that this Houston team might be able to cover the spread here, and they might pop up later on in the parlays. But just my individual bets, don't feel confident yet.
Yeah, I think I hit my thing last week, and I didn't want to go through it. They raised my hopes because I had them in a money line bet too, and Cooks caught that catch, and then they called it cheap hold, and then another time they're down there, and the play calling, leaves something to be desired. But I didn't want probably a 2-week maneuver where I'm having to watch the Texans play. Washington, I will say, coming off a good win, versus the Eagles, but it was one of those things where if you watch the game, really the Eagles kind of dominated it, turned the ball over cheaply a couple times, and the Commanders took advantage of it. But, if you watch the game, the Eagles were really the better team, and, it's just one of those NFL games where, better team makes a couple stupid mistakes. Commanders cash in on it, and they go. Heineke wasn't all that great in the game last week, but I got a couple player props in this one. You got anything in this one?
No, I have no play in this one.
Well, I'm gonna just go a little heavy on the Commanders' rushing attack here. Robinson anytime touchdown plus 125. Gibson anytime touchdown plus 195. Gibson 70 plus rushing yards plus 360. Robinson 100 plus rushing yards plus 360. I really didn't like that one. I thought that was Robinson 100 plus yards plus 360 wasn't all that great value, especially since if you go look at the stats, it's basically been about 11 to 14 carries Gibson, 11 to 14 carries Robinson. But, I figure there's a chance somebody's going to hit something big. So 70 for Gibson. 100 for Robinson, 360 on both. If I can hit one of those with a touchdown, make yourself a little money there. All right, let's go to our next game. Eagles at the Colts. Eagles coming off their, first loss of the season. We talked about it, and actually, I think it's kind of a good thing. All this stupid, undefeated season talk done. We don't have to, watch ESPN prop the probability odds up on the screen for each game. So, they can just focus on winning the division now and going. Colts, I guess coming off a good win versus Las Vegas. I don't know if such a thing exists, but we were both sort of right on that read there. But honestly, I love the Eagles in this one. I think, we got this Jeff Saturday coaching, let's just say bubble, great. He's did a great job. Now he's going to face a real team, and I think the Eagles go in there and wipe the floor with this Colts team. Matt Ryan was pretty solid versus the Raiders, but the Eagles are going to have a pass rush and be on top of him, unlike the Raiders, and they can also cover in the back, unlike the Raiders. So I look for Eagles blowout. I got a couple different bets here. What do you like about this one?
Well, first of all, that Philly loss, I think, was a little shocking to a lot of people, especially who it came up against. But, it's a divisional opponent. Those kind of things are going to happen here and there, especially throughout an entire NFL season. But, I'm with you, man. Even though Indy looked pretty good last week, it was against the Raiders team that we both kind of saw this coming. And I couldn't quite understand why the odds were what they were. But, we jumped on it, and thankfully we were able to make a few bucks here. But I'm also on Philly here. I just can't take the points. I feel like it's a little too much. I do think they were going to come out really aggressive based off the fact that they lost their last game. They're probably a little upset here, but I'll give you my plays for this one. I'm kind of all over the place on it. This is a lot of gut feelings here, but I'll give you my plays. So a couple of props here. A.J. Brown, who cost me last week, but I'm still going to ride him this week. Anytime touchdown at plus 120. I got Matt Ryan over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 154. Jalen Hurts over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 108. I got Pierce over 27.5 receiving yards minus 113. And then I've got a Jalen Hurts alternate line, 80 plus rushing yards at plus 640.
Yeah, I got three things here, all involving the Eagles. I wanted to do four, but Eagles minus 6.5, Eagles first half minus 3.5, and alternate line, Eagles minus 17 on this one. I wanted to do, my thing, Eagles half, Eagles game, but that was 135, and I didn't want two, sort of first half bets sitting there dependent on, Eagles first half, because maybe the Colts can stick with them with a half and then sort of wear down and, Ryan makes a couple mistakes. So I just went with my, golden triangle of 6.5 first half and alternate spread minus 17. The alternate spread minus 17 at plus 306. We'll see where the Colts are at from there and see if the Eagles can sort of bounce back here. I didn't really like any of the player props you mentioned. I looked at the A.J. Brown ones because I thought maybe a bounce back game, but I thought I'd get maybe 140 for a touchdown there. And then I went to look at the 2+ score, and it was only like plus 170, which I really, really didn't like. And I thought that was, sort of crazy. The other thing we didn't sort of touch on is Goddard's out for the Eagles, so I'm curious Maybe Devontae Smith gets a couple more throws, but I sort of wanted to see how that played out, if they go there or just dump it down to, one of the couple running backs they have. All right, this one's an interesting one because I don't have much on it because I just don't know really what to expect. Cleveland versus Buffalo. The game's not in Buffalo because of the massive snowstorm, which seems a little weird. That seems to be the whole point of Buffalo, to have massive snowstorms. If you were going to be a little scared of that, then why is there a team in Buffalo? Nonetheless, Buffalo, Detroit, or Cleveland is in Detroit. Buffalo's had some trouble getting there, so I kind of stayed away with it. I went with, one sort of big alternate line, but watching Cleveland last week, it basically just looked like they're waiting for the Watson return and then to see if they can make a push there. So I didn't take the 7.5. I don't know what you have on this, but I just sort of. This was too weird a game. I don't know what sort of shape Buffalo's going to be in. And I did not like the vibes I got from Cleveland last week in Miami.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, I think I mentioned to you, I sent you a text earlier today where I was like, can I put a disclaimer on that I'm not 100% satisfied with my picks? And a lot of it has to do with just there's been a lot of crazy stuff going on this week. And you mentioned this Buffalo thing was one of them. The game's being played in Detroit now, and a lot of players had to get help from fans and coaches and all that as far as getting everybody out so they can get everybody into Detroit so they can play
really
this
been
game.
Able to practice either. That's the other thing.
Yeah, they had a practice scheduled for Friday, which was canceled due to the weather. So they all did like the Zoom meeting, which obviously is not a replacement for a walkthrough Friday practice. So a little bit of concern, but this is a Buffalo team that's probably one of the best teams in the league. So maybe it kind of takes away the concern a little bit here. But I do have a couple plays here, not that I'm too confident in. My first one here is I'm taking the under 49.5. I just think that all the crazy movement, last minute, relocation, players trying to get out, I think it's all going to affect the game in one way or another. Worst case scenario, this Cleveland team, as you mentioned, hasn't really shown much over the last few games. They do have a really solid rushing attack, which all it does is drain time off the clock, which leads to less points in the game. So I think this 49.5 is probably a pretty good play here at minus 110, I believe. And the only other one I have here is Buffalo second half spread -4. Again, this is just me assuming that this Buffalo team's better, and it's probably going to take them a couple quarters to kind of get going because they didn't have practice and all the weather situations they have with the travel thing. So those are my only two plays for this one. But again, these are picks that I don't feel super confident in. So, buyers beware.
Yeah. Let me just get into Buffalo for a couple minutes here. Any concerned with sort of their play in close type of games? Now, granted, this wasn't a close type of game till, a couple freak things start to happen, but it's becoming a little bit more of a habit that sort of freak things start to happen to the Bills. You go back to the playoff game with Kansas City where, they're winning and there's 13 seconds on the clock. They lose that game. Earlier in the year, the Miami game where, basically they had 600 yards of offense and Miami had like 250, and they sort of found ways to, lose that game. And then you look at, the game versus the Vikings, which they dominated and controlled. And then, sort of the last 8 minutes, just wonky things start to happen. Definitely the last 2 minutes, the 4th and 18, ridiculous catch, the fumble in the end zone, Allen throwing a pick there at the end. Is there concern with Buffalo here, or, it's just one of those things where wonky things sometimes happen in football and you just sort of move on?
It really depends on which perspective you're looking at it from. If you're looking at it from a fantasy football perspective, there is no issue whatsoever. This is a Buffalo team that's going to put up stats regardless. If you're looking at it as a Bills fan, I don't think that there's much concern here either. This is a team that has added pieces for that particular reason to make big plays, big impact plays in big games. Now, we haven't necessarily seen that happen as of yet, but I do think that when the game counts, when it really matters, we're talking about playoff time. I think that's when a lot of these players will step up and make plays that they were brought in to make. Now, if you're looking at it from a better standpoint, then there's some concern here because you're starting to run into certain situations where this Bills team is favored by double-digit scores in some situations, and it's just they started off so hot as far as versus the spread, and it seems like they've fallen off over the last few weeks. But again, it all depends on how you're looking at it from whatever perspective you're in. As a bettor, I am a little concerned, just kind of the way it's kind of changed in the last couple of minutes in the game.
Yeah. All right, 2 for me. Bills minus 21 at plus 423. I figure this game goes one of two ways. Either the Bills just annihilate them, or it ends up being a close game because everything's just been wonky and thrown off. So it's going one of two ways. Plus 423, minus 21. Judging from what I saw with Cleveland last week versus Miami, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't stop the pass. They couldn't move the ball on offense. So, I think there's a chance here for a blowout, certainly. And then Josh Allen, 350 plus passing yards is plus 425. So I thought that was pretty good value as well here in this game. Indoors in a dome, I think that fits, Buffalo's team. So 350 plus passing yards for Allen, plus 425.
Yeah, Buffalo, the greatest team that should have played in a dome.
Yes, I definitely so. It did make me wonder a little bit when they moved this, game, if it was more a Buffalo sort of suggestion here. Because if you think about it, really the only way Cleveland could stay in this game is if there's, 10 feet of snow. It's freezing cold outside.
I was going to say, if this game was still in Buffalo, had we not had this huge winter storm, I was actually leaning more towards Buffalo with the point. I'm sorry, towards Cleveland with the points, just because they have that formula where they can just pound the rock, especially in bad weather games, and just keep it close.
Yeah.
But obviously the venue's changed now, so has the betting.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our next one. Honestly, I had no clue what to do with this. The Lions are on a 2-game winning streak. The Giants are 8-2. Somehow they look even less impressive than the one-loss Vikings. But like I said, they were pretty awful in that Texans game, but found a way to win. So I didn't like the Giants minus 3 in this one. I just was sort of a pass. I think they will be able to just control this game because the Lions' defense is so bad, and Barkley should be able to run. Jones should be able to run the ball. But it does make me a little nervous if, this Lions team gets up on the Giants, which we haven't seen a team really do to the Giants yet. But if they were to get up 14-0, 21-7, something like that, I'm not 100% sure this Giants team is capable of making a kind of comeback like that. So I was just sort of a stay away on the Lions-Giants here. What'd you make of this game?
It's so funny. We're pretty much like on the same wavelength here today. I had the same feeling, which is why in my notes it says if I was picking an upset alert, this is probably a good candidate for it because I do feel that the Lions have a good shot at winning this game as road underdogs here. But I'll give you my plays for this game. I'm going to go ahead and ride the Giants anyways at minus 3. I'm a little concerned about it, but I feel like they did pretty well for me last week with that minus 4.5. They were able to cover that one. So I'm going to ride them again this week. I've got also Williams anytime touchdown at plus 115. And I've got Jared Goff over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 136.
Yeah, I got 2 here. Jones anytime touchdown at plus 220. We know how poor the Lions rushing attack is. And then Daniel Jones 75 plus rushing yards at plus 550. I think we'll see a lot of yards on the ground by the Giants here. So there wasn't any value in taking Saquon yardage. That thing was up into the 90s. His touchdowns were way up into the minus. His 2 touchdown value was,
there was no value there.
So I was just stay away in that one. So nonetheless, see if Jones can hit a run or two here and hit something. So 225.50 for anytime touchdown, 75 plus rushing yards. No real game action, though, on this one. Here's another one I thought was a little weird. Bears at Falcons. The Bears seem to be entertaining, but not very good at winning games. Once again, we got the Fields special, and I had to hear how great he was. But, it's always everybody's second comment that, he just completed one pass in the second half of the game last week. Very exciting player, very dynamic, but you can't be the quarterback of a football team if you're completing one pass in a half. And the Falcons really had a chance to keep themselves right there on top of Tampa Bay. Went to Carolina and completely laid an egg. Mariota looked just awful. And now we're in the weird situation where all the fans in Atlanta want the rookie to come in. The coach wants Mariota to come in there. And you got the sort of weird thing where every time now Mariota makes a mistake, the fans are going to be upset. And then the coach has to sort of stand his ground and stand up for Mariota. So I don't know what to make of this line. Atlanta 3, they're probably the better team here. But I just don't like Atlanta as a favorite, but there's really not enough with Chicago to make me grab them, especially with the way they've played defensively. They've just been atrocious defensively the last 4 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think that Atlanta is probably the better team here, but I don't think that I like them much as favorites. I believe versus the spread as favorites, they haven't had a good record so far this season. So it's not something I'm going to jump on here, although they might pop up later on in my parlay section here. But I'll give you my plays for this game. I got a few prop bets for this one. I've got a Justin Fields anytime touchdown at plus 105. Not great value, but we know how well he runs the ball. This Atlanta defense isn't spectacular by any means, so good shot there. I've also got a Drake London anytime touchdown. I think this Falcons team bounces back offensively based off what they did last week, which was completely atrocious here. Plus 200 for that one. I got Marcus Mariota alternate line here at plus 200 passing yards at plus 164. There was very little value in the Fields rushing props just because of how great he's been over the last few weeks. So I'm not touching any of those there. So my last one here is Montgomery over 59.5 rushing yards at minus 160.
Yeah.
The only reason I'm taking that one, I don't love it, but the only reason I'm taking it is with the injury to his backup. It seemed like they were starting to feed him the ball a little bit more, but with him being out now, it seems like it's back to Montgomery. Yeah,
that was the other thing I was going to say that made me a little nervous of taking the Bears here is without Herbert there, they haven't been running an option, but they've basically been running a three-man rushing attack, and that's what they do. And now you take probably the most explosive one between him and Montgomery. Herbert's a little more explosive. Montgomery's a little more, ground and pound type guy. So I'm just staying away. The only thing I got for this one is Cordell Patterson, 100-plus rushing yards. We've seen the Bears' defense be really bad, and that was 7.5 to 1. So I thought there was pretty good value there, especially since, Patterson's now been back for a couple weeks, so he's probably a little healthier. He got the extra 2 days to rest after the Carolina game. They'll be back in the Dome, so Patterson 100-plus, plus 750 for me for this one. Next game, this line just stinks. I very badly want to take Carolina here. It's taking every bit of my nerve not to take the 12.5, but I just can't quite do it here versus Baltimore. But 12.5 for Baltimore, that seems like quite a bit for a defense that's been a little shaky. An offense who has no receivers. Andrews isn't going to be in there. I mean, I as much as I like Lamar Jackson, 12.5 just seemed like a lot, but I don't know. I guess I'm being a coward. I can't take Carolina here either.
Man, I'm telling you, it's wild. We are like literally on the same page today. I feel the same way. On my notes, it says I thought about taking Carolina plus 13 at minus 110. I mean, I can't do it. I can't go against Lamar Jackson here, especially with this Carolina team with injured quarterbacks and God knows what's going on with that team. So very little weapons. I'm not going to do it, but I'll give you a couple prop bets that I've got for this game here. Lamar Jackson, anytime touchdown at plus 135, pretty good value there, especially when you know he's going to need to run the ball since he doesn't have a lot of weapons on the outside. Duvernay, anytime touchdown, plus 165. If anyone's going to catch one, I feel like it's a good chance for him to do so. He's a pretty big guy, so he's a good threat. Lamar Jackson, alternate line, 80-plus rushing yards at plus 240. Again, I said it, if they're going to have a big game this week, they're probably going to depend on his legs a lot, so good shot for that one. Kenyon Drake, anytime touchdown, plus 100, and that's it for this game.
Yeah, nothing for me on this one, so I'm out on this one. We'll see what happens. This next one, I have some interesting bets on this one. I also got an interesting parlay that we'll touch on later, but Jets, Patriots, minus 3.5. The only thing I fear in this game is which offensive team has the ball, because I think that team is actually at the disadvantage here. Both quarterbacks are shaky and turnover prone. I guess you'd say New England runs the ball a little bit better than the Jets, but the Jets never beat New England, but I can't take Mac Jones minus 3.5 with the way this Jets defense and secondary has been playing. So I was a no-go on the spread, but I got a couple defensive props on this one. So what are you looking at here?
So your thinking is this is kind of like that Waterboy bowl game where the offense just takes 4 knees and lets the defense go out there and perform.
I'm pretty sure if I was either side of the coach, that would be my strategy. Maybe first and second down, you hand it off to the running back and hope he breaks one. But anything over third and about 7, I think I'm just taking a knee and punting it off.
Well, I'll tell you what, okay? So I was a little torn here. The thing that scares me the most out of this is, Bill Belichick putting together one of his classic defensive games here. That's what scares me. Yeah. But either way, you might as well call me Benny because I'm rolling with the Jets on this one. I'm taking the Jets plus 3.5 here. Both of these defenses seem to play, pretty well. The offense is pretty much what's been lacking for both of these teams, but the Jets have been getting wins, so I'm going to go ahead and ride them this week. And that's pretty much it. I have no prop bets for this game.
Yeah. We have safety to be scored plus 750. We have New England defense anytime touchdown plus 650. New York Jets defense anytime touchdown plus 800. I'm feeling like the likelihood of something bad that the offense does is really what could happen in this game. So that's where I'm going. See if I can hit one of those long shots and the offense plays poor. The next game, I have no way to handicap this. I'm curious if you had some sort of insight into this one. But Las Vegas Raiders at Denver Broncos, Broncos minus 3. I couldn't even come up with a way to do player props. Denver's offense has been so poor that there is zero chance I want to touch any of their offensive players. But the Vegas defense is so atrocious that I don't want to touch any of their players. And Denver's defense is good. The Raiders are just hurt still, so basically they have 2 weapons on offense, and both teams are sort of just crap. So I was a no-go everywhere on this. I'm curious if you had some sort of breathtaking insight on Raiders-Broncos here.
I have none. The only thing I have here are gut feelings. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't even going to take a play in this game, but I was like, okay, this would be the 3rd game at this point that I've had no play in. I'm like, I can't do that. I got to try to go with my gut here. So, again, buyers beware on these picks here. My place for this one, I'm going to take the Raiders plus the points at 2.5.
Dear God.
I know, but I'm telling you, I've got a weird feeling. I did last week too when they were going up against the Colts, and it paid off for me. So I'm going to write the Raiders here at the points. And I hate to do it because pretty much, openly discussed my disdain for the coach, the head coach for this Raiders team, but we won't touch that one right
the
now.
only coach he might be better with is the one that's on the other sideline.
And that was the thinking here, okay? So that probably played some part into it. So let me just give you my prop bets here really quick so we can get past this game because, not too confident here. My next one here, I'm taking the over 41.5 points. I don't know how that's going to happen, but I feel like if there was ever going to be a lot of points scored by either one of these offenses, it's probably against each other here. Melvin Gordon, anytime touchdown, plus 210. And Devontae Adams, even though he's a little banged up, he will play. He's still their number one target. So anytime touchdown for him at plus 125.
Yeah. All right. This next game is actually a fun one to talk about. Unlike the last one, really, I should probably send the NFL a bill for, my time that I had to spend looking over the lines on the previous 2 or 3 games.
Yeah. How about me? I had to go back to it after having a no play on it.
All right. Dallas Cowboys, Minnesota Vikings. We talked about it, really a little bit earlier in the year. If this Dallas defense starts to drop a little bit, you wonder if this team really is worthy of playing with these top teams in the NFC. It was hard to judge that Green Bay game. It was 28-14 at a point, but I thought that was a little misleading too because I thought Dak played terrible the whole game, and you just saw the Dallas defense, especially against the run, start to fall apart a little bit here. You saw the Vikings get their little miracle win here. I was absolutely stunned that the Vikings are getting points in this game. And, stupidly, I'm probably going to, lose money, but I'm going to take the Vikings because you're giving me plus with the Vikings at home. From what I saw from the Dallas offense, I can't grab that. And if this defense, like I said, starts to break down, what do they have to fall back on here? So I'm curious your thoughts on this Cowboys-Vikings game here.
I'm telling you, man, today's the day. I mean, we might actually get lucky with some of these picks, just as, the same wavelength that we're on here. I feel the same way. I don't understand how this Minnesota Vikings, after performing the way they did last week versus the AFC favorites here, are getting points at home. It's a little confusing here, but I'm going to go ahead and take Minnesota with the points at plus 1.5 points. And I've only got one prop bet for this game, simply because I don't know whether this Dallas defense has been pretty poor against the rush, but they do have the ability to get after the quarterback, so that scares me a little bit.
Certainly, we get Cousins, throwing picks all over the place, which is what he was doing in the Buffalo game before the last, 8 minutes of that game.
Yeah. I looked at Hawkinson. I felt like he's been targeted a lot. I feel like I had pretty good value. But then I thought about who might be covering him. So I shied away from that. So my only other play other than Minnesota plus 1.5 here at minus 105 is Adam Thielen, anytime touchdown at plus 185. I know that he's not the Adam Thielen of old, but he still tends to look from, especially, when you get close to the red zone, you would assume that Diggs would probably be covering on Jefferson. And again, like I mentioned, Hawkinson might be covered too by some of those really stout linebackers. So I'm going to ride Thielen here on anytime touchdown.
Yeah, I got Vikings plus 1.5 really big here. I love the Vikings bet. And then I'm going to go Alexander Madison, anytime touchdown. It was at 4-1. If he can get a couple carries in and around the goal line there, with the way we saw that Dallas run defense play, he might be able to hit one. So I thought the value of 4-1 was pretty good on that one. So Madison, anytime touchdown, 4-1, and then Vikings, plus 1.5. It really does look like this Vikings team is going to end up being, maybe 2, maybe 3 losses on the year. I hate to, do that, but I just still don't trust them. They were just getting dominated, but you start looking at the NFC, I don't know who you trust. We mentioned, the next team off that is the Giants. Basically, the only team you sort of trust is the 49ers, and we can list the myriad of issues they have, but do you think this Vikings team can make a run here?
Yeah, I think they can make a run simply by the fact that they have the issue that it actually scares me. Also, it's kind of like a between a hard place between a sword and a hard place. It's they're playing up to their competition. They play poor teams and they sneak off with wins, where they didn't perform as good as they should have. They play against good teams, and we think that this is going to be the time where they falter and they outperform expectations. So it scares me. Is this going to be a continuing trend throughout the season? Because if that's the case, then you can expect a few upsets with this team. If not, you can also expect some surprising wins. So I like him to make a run for that reason, but I also am a little timid and scared for that reason as well.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our next game. Bengals at the Steelers. Steelers getting 3.5 here. Fitzpatrick's going to be back. Watt was back. I didn't think he did a ton in the game last week, but I thought the Steelers played pretty well. For really as poor as, once again, for as poor as talent as they really have, the job Mike Tomlin's doing to even make this team remotely competitive here is quite a job. I like Steelers getting 3 points at home here versus the Bengals with everybody healthy. I know the Bengals are coming off a bye, but they're still going to be without Chase. And I think, if the Bengals go back to that, sort of run-heavy offense, I'm not sure it's going to work quite as well here versus the Steelers as it did the, week before. So what'd you make of this game, Bengals-Steelers here? I also think the weather's going to be pretty bad up there, which should make for, a tight game. And if the Bengals do something stupid like throw 55 times a game, which they tend to be poor to do, I think the bad weather could come back and haunt them as well.
Yeah, I believe when I looked at it now, I haven't checked it for an update, but I believe when I looked at it, it was supposed to be pretty cold and kind of windy here. So not ideal, conditions for a team like this Cincinnati Bengals that like to throw the ball all over the place, even though they should be running the ball more as successful as they have been before. But I don't have a lot of plays here. I don't feel very confident. The addition of Watt and, with their safety coming back, it makes me a little timid taking anything here, but I'll give you a couple of plays that I was able to come up with. I've got a Tyler Boyd anytime touchdown at plus 185, and maybe Najee Harris over 45.5 rushing yards. I'm still haven't quite pulled the trigger on that one, but I've got it pending in my bet slip. I'm just waiting for a little confidence. I was hoping you might be able to make me pull the trigger.
Yeah. Well, I will say the Bengals' rush defense has been pretty poor. And actually, last week, I thought that was the best I'd seen Harris really run. So, if the Steelers are going to win, it's going to be because, Najee Harris, has 70, 80 yards in the game.
Yeah.
So I definitely think it's playable. It's just sort of one of those things where he really hadn't been good all season long. The Steelers' line still isn't very good, but at least last week, from what I saw, I thought that's the best I'd seen him run. So maybe he's starting to sort of find his way, and maybe the offensive line is starting to gel a little bit. Mix that with sort of a poor Cincinnati Bengals, defense. There's definitely a shot for it. I only have the one play. I'm going to take Pittsburgh plus the 3.5 here. Versus Cincinnati. These next two games, I really don't have much to bet on because basically I don't totally know who's going to play. In a couple of these. Chiefs Chargers plus 5.5. For the Chargers here at home, though. Home is relative.
It'll be a neutral side game.
I can guarantee if there won't be more, there will be just as many Chiefs fans at this game. But, Williams is still sort of questionable. Keenan Allen is, I guess, sort of going to go, but I don't think he's really healthy even if he goes. So I don't totally know what that means. But then Juju's probably out for, Kansas City. So I just, it was sort of a stay away. Maybe later when I get a little more clarification on what the Chargers are throwing out there. I might be a little more aggressive on it. But the other thing that sort of made me nervous taking this Chiefs at 5.5 is, we're in sort of last stand territory here for the Chargers. They can't really afford to keep losing, especially with as good as the AFC side of things are. You know, you look at that AFC East and Jets, Dolphins, Bills, all probably, lock it up. They have the same record as the Patriots. You look at Bengals and Ravens, probably pretty solid bets, to get into the playoffs. You look at the Chiefs, going to get in the playoffs. So, I think we pretty much already crossed off, Raiders and Broncos here. Chargers still have a bit of a chance, but they can't continue to lose games, even if it is a little bit of injury occurrence. But, once again, we get into the Chargers, everybody's favorite team that never makes the playoffs.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you. I think this is it's not quite, a must-win situation, but it's getting close. And for that reason, and the trend of divisional opponents so far this season, I'm going to write the Chargers here at plus 5.5. I think that they have a pretty good shot at least contending to cover the spread here. Keenan Allen is probably going to go. He was a full participant in Friday's practice. I don't know exactly how healthy that means he is, but I'm going to ride him here anyways on an anytime touchdown at plus 150. I think Keenan Allen, the lineup is better than no Keenan Allen. So that probably helps him a little bit. I've got Herbert over 1.5 passing touchdowns at minus 150. Again, I think that this Charger team's going to be competitive because they feel the fire under their feet. So they're probably going to really step up in this one. And my last one here, Austin Eckler over 90.5 rushing/receiving yards. They're going to need a big day from him if they're going to keep it close in this one.
Yeah, I got one play here. Kadarius Toney, 100-plus yards, plus 630. They went to him a little bit last week. He's capable of hitting explosive plays. So if he can hit one or two explosive plays here versus the Chargers, which tend to give up a handful of explosive plays, maybe you hit that 6-1. But, yeah, I was sort of just going to wait and see what sort of Chargers team trotted out here before I was going to be real aggressive. And the same thing goes for this game, too. Niners, Cardinals, one, it's in Mexico City, which sort of makes things a little bit weird here. Two, the spread I thought was really, really big at -8. But we can't quite get a name on who's starting at quarterback. I will say if Colt starts at quarterback, I'm taking that +8. But if it's Kyler, I doubt I switch totally to the Niners side of things. But I definitely would not be on the Cardinals, let's say. So I was sort of I pass on this game until I know who's playing quarterback. What do you have for Niners Cardinals here?
Yeah, first off, a spread this wide for a neutral site game really concerned me.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that it's a Monday night game, so we don't know a lot of details until really, a couple hours before kickoff here. But I'll give you a couple prop bets that I was able to come up with. Decent value with a decent shot of hitting here. Deebo Samuel, anytime touchdown. We haven't seen him be as productive so far this season. Part of it's been a couple nagging injuries. Part of it's been the addition to other weapons on offense also. But I like Deebo here at plus 125. DeAndre Hopkins, anytime touchdown at plus 145. And the only spread that I'm taking for this game, and I still don't feel super confident about it, depending on who goes, for the quarterback for Arizona. San Francisco first half minus 4.5. At minus 105.
Yeah. The other thing, I was trying to figure it out. The line sort of says they think the Niners are, more of a home field favorite here. But I was reading stuff, and it was trying to dive into some sort of Mexico City history with the Arizona Cardinals and Phoenix.
That's not a good thing.
I couldn't quite put it together because I was like, San Francisco's way more of a public team, and if you're talking, 80s, early 90s, Mexico City would have definitely known who the Niners were. I'm not sure they even would have known the Arizona Cardinals were in the NFL because a lot of those teams were terrible. So, I can't tell who has the advantage here and what sort of noise will be coming in, or if it'll be, sort of like a soccer match where there'll just be continuous, noise throughout the game. So I couldn't find really a way there. I thought 8 was a little bit much, so I was just a no-go. I did take Christian McCaffrey 2+ touchdowns. I know it's only plus 380, but honestly, I thought that was kind of good value because I think there's a pretty good shot he gets 2 touchdowns basically every game, for the rest of the season, because they can utilize him both in the pass and on the run anytime they're down there on the goal line, and it doesn't appear George Kittle is ever going to score touchdowns ever again. So
based off those odds, I would say Vegas probably agrees with you then.
Yes, definitely so. All right, so that's all the games there. I got a couple parlays. You got any parlays for us?
I've got 3.
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parlays on the books. A couple really fun ones, but you want to start out for us?
Start off this week. So my first one for the week is my underdog moneyline parlay. Now, I will say you can mix and match this. I'm going to go ahead and ride with all 4 of them because I'm feeling risky today since there wasn't too much that I liked in the regular slate of games. New York Jets, Houston, Chicago, and Raiders, a 4-teamer at plus 3,094. My underdog moneyline parlay hit last week. And I called it a mix and match because I feel like you could take 3 and still get pretty good value like did last week at probably like 13 or 15 to 1. But I think I'm just going to go ahead and ride it, be wild and ride the 4-teamer this week. My next one is a spread parlay of favorites. Cincinnati minus 3.5, New York Giants minus 3, and New Orleans minus 2.5 at plus 567. Pretty good value there for favorites. And then my last one is my quarterback anytime touchdown parlay. Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Justin Fields, all 3 of them at plus 819. Pretty good value there for guys that run the ball a lot.
Yeah. Well, let's start out in the Jets-New England game. I got 2 parlays here. 1, Mac Jones, Zach Wilson, both 2+ interceptions apiece. We're going Mac Jones 2+, Zach Wilson 2+. That's 8 to 1. Then I mentioned earlier I was taking straight bets of both the New England defense and the Jets defense to score a touchdown. Guess what happens when you parlay those 2 together? You get 59-35, which, granted, in most games, I would say that's not very good odds. But I've watched both quarterbacks play, and I've watched both defensive play. And I'd say there's a half chance that both defenses score in this game, certainly so. So 59-35 for me in this one. Gibson and Robinson, both anytime touchdowns, plus 575. This one I actually went pretty big money on at plus 153. Eagles, money line. Vikings, the spread, it's plus 153 there. So you get all the Eagles have to do is beat the Colts. Vikings plus 1.5 at plus 153. I thought that was pretty good value. And then lastly, my adjusted lines parlay. Eagles minus 17, Bills minus 21. That's 2023 on that parlay. So 2-team parlay, 2023. So if we can just get blowouts in Eagles, Bills, and touchdowns by both the Jets and Patriots defense, we'll have a nice day.
Big day. Yeah. Hey, I really like your Eagles and was it Minnesota parlay? I like that one. I might have to write that one.
Yeah, Eagles, Vikings. Eagles, you get the spread. Or Eagles, you don't get. Eagles, you get the money line. Vikings, you get the spread. At plus 153, I thought that was pretty good value there, especially if you think the Vikes are going to win. You put that with the Eagles, you get a little plus money on that, so I liked that one a lot. You can also, if you want a little less, like plus 120, you can just do a teaser on that, like a 6-point. The teaser would take Philly down to even money, and the Vikes would go up to like 6.5. So, even then, it might be worth it to drop it down, 1 or 2 points there as well. But that's what we got for bets today. Be sure to like and subscribe. Watch all of our content. Dynamite David will be back next week to do our college football content. We had to get the World Cup show out. Ecuador is up 2-0 as we speak. We'll see.
I got to check my bracket.
We'll see if the host Qatar can get a goal here. But nonetheless, like, subscribe. Don't miss any of our content. That's our show, and we're out.